basically, I applied for it. I got my 8A certification, and 2 weeks after I received my letter, I had an 8A contract because I had been working, marketing to this one particular customer who eventually was like, okay, when are you going to get your 8A your certification so I can help you with this particular requirement that we have.
Well, hey, Crystal, it's so good to be back for another show on the Governese channel.
That's right, episode 4.
Already, man, we are moving along. So who's our guest today?
So today we have Miss Tiffany Bailey with OSC Edge. Welcome, Tiffany. Glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be.
You guys are going to be in for a treat. Tiffany is an experienced government contractor. She has a lot of good nuggets that she'll be dropping for us. So I'm going to be all ears and taking notes. So I suggest that you all do the same. So welcome to episode 4.
All right. Well, hey, again, Tiffany, thanks for being a friend of the show and always, a friend of myself and GCA and all these years here. So it's good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm always excited to sit down and talk with you, Abe, and talk with everyone at GCA.
All right, but before we get into Tiffany's story, how she got to government space and how she's done in the government contracting space, in our last episode, we talked about those Braves, those pesky Braves, and they were about to lose. And remember that, Crystal?
Yes.
And we had Marvin on, and he had his Braves outfit, and he was chopping away, trying to get the Braves to the World Series. Well, guess what? In today's episode, the Braves just won the World Series. That's awesome.
All right, ATL. Woo-hoo.
Yeah, we're based in Atlanta, so the show is based out of Atlanta, so we'll root for the Braves. If the Astros have won, we'll root for the Astros too. But since we're here in Atlanta, it's just kind of close to our hearts to have the Braves become world champions. So that's awesome.
Yes.
I think Marvin will be very happy.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Well, hey, welcome to the Governese Webcast, and so good to have all of you here with us. We're going to be talking about a few things here, and as we mentioned earlier, Tiffany Bailey with OSC Edge is with us. She'll be joining us and sharing her stories in a second here. But I want to talk about some Governese stuff. So what's happening this week in the government contracting world, Crystal?
So this week, November the 1st through the 5th is National Veteran Small Business Week. The SBA is celebrating veteran-owned businesses across the country for the entire week. There are a number of events that have been scheduled and planned, no-cost events, in honor of it being National Veteran Small Business Week. And if you are a veteran-owned small business, we highly recommend that you get certified as a VOSB, a veteran-owned small business. And if you are a disabled veteran, we recommend the SDVOSB, the Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business. Both certification applications are being processed through the SBA, and Abe will give you a little bit more information about that. And I would like to just thank all of the veterans for their service. And I encourage our viewers to support veteran-owned small businesses.
Our veterans, they do so much for us as a nation and for the families that they support. So it's a great week to honor our veterans here. Mm-hmm. So on talking about that there, why don't we make our Governese word for the day VOSB and SDVOSB, and let's dive a little bit deeper into that there. So there's a few things happening. So let me share my screen, and I'm going to go and talk about some things that's happening around that there. Many of you are aware of it, but some of you that's listening and watching this episode here may not be fully aware of it. So let's talk about that a little bit. So the VOSB, SDVOSB historically has been done through the CVE Center for Verification Evaluation tied to the VA itself. So that certification has been around for many years now. If you want to get certified as a veteran-owned business or several veteran-owned business, you would go to the VA, and then it will be done through the CVE division there. Regulations came out way back in 2018 to start transitioning that to the SBA, and more so unifying the certifications of all the small businesses. There's many different certifications out there. There's a DBE program that used to be done by the DOD. That program got challenged in court, and so that program pretty much is non-existent at this point here. And then there's also the WOSB that's done by third party. Changes are being made around that too. And HubZone, obviously the 8A certification program, all of those have been slowly migrating and everything is being centralized to the SBA. Well, today, I want to highlight this here because it is Veterans Week. Talk about the SDVOSB and VOSB. So the transfer to the SBA is going to happen on January 1st, 2023. So this is when, at this point here, the VA and the CVE will no longer be processing any certification. So this gives you a lot of time. So it's still a long way away. You were talking about a year and a few months. So there's still a transition period, which means that for the time being, veterans can still go through this CVE. The certification process is still there. But let's highlight a few quick things here. So we're talking about this article here, thanks to Pelero Matza, a great blog article that they have here. And I'll put the link into the down there in the comments area. So if you guys want to go read the whole article, feel free to do that there as well. And the rules changes started in 2018, as I mentioned earlier. It was added to the National Defense Authorization, or the NDAA, for this year, for fiscal year 2021. And then now the migration can start happening. And so we look forward to the full move to January 2023. And what are your thoughts, Krista? Will this be better for veteran businesses, or do you think this becomes more of a stumbling block for veteran businesses?
Hopefully it will not be a stumbling block, and it will be a more streamlined process and easier for them to obtain the certification. I know the SBA is working to put new processes in place, as it relates to certification programs. So I'm hoping that this will be one of those that will be easier for our veterans. I mean, we need to, we want to support them and all small businesses. So hopefully it'll be, a better process for them, an easier process.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tiffany, you've had your company certified for a while. What do you think? What do you think? Would this be a good move for veteran-owned businesses, or what's your thoughts?
I do think that making the move over to SBA for certification probably is a good move. I think, the SBA is making a move to consolidate everything and under one roof. Traditionally, you've had all these different organizations to certify different groups. I think it will help it be one-stop shop for SDVOSB and for VOSBs. I think it's a good idea that it's all going to be consolidated under that one. Mm-hmm. Because really the VA, right? The VA needs to focus on what the VA has to do. And the SBA is there to focus on supporting small businesses. And a SDVOSB or VOSB is just another type of small business that they can get that specialized support from the SBA. So I think it's a good one.
Yeah, well, I sure hope both of you are right. But I have to lean on what experience have taught me in all these years in government contracting.
Yeah, there's theory, and then there's what happens in real life, right?
Right,
Yes.
right.
So I think in principle, long term, I think it will be better. So I agree with you, both of you, on that point there. But I think during the transition and probably the first 2-3 years of the program is going to be chaotic. And so I'm just going to go by what I've seen and use that as a reference point here. So back in 2008, when the first regulations, 2006 really is when the first women-owned certification started coming about through executive order. 2010, it became more of a formal program for the WSB and EDWSB certification program for women-owned businesses. The transition to move from self-certification from 2010 to becoming a formal program under the SBA, this is 2021, 11 years later, and the WSB is still not fully under the umbrella of the SBA, and we're still having chaos. So last year, 2020, all of WSB should have been under the SBA, and the SBA has such a backlog. There's probably, at that time, there was probably about 90,000 women-owned certified businesses out there that needed to make the transition from self-certification to under the SBA. And for some of you who are women-owned businesses out there, I know you're struggling because you still haven't been processed, because you're like, you know, I'm waiting to be processed and I'm still not through the process here. So if I'm looking at that, you're talking about, 90,000. It is a lot of businesses that needed to transition under the SBA for EDWSB and WSB. So I fully respect the work the SBA have to do, because it is a lot of paperwork and a lot of regulations that has to be followed. So hats off to them for all the hard work that they're doing. But at the same time, it's been a 11-year journey, and you know how do you transition 11 years and not have a good plan to get everybody processed? So now let's look quickly to see how many active VOSB and SDVOSB. And so if we look at that, let's try to gauge a little bit of what kind of potential backlog the SBA is going to have, given looking at historical data here. So I'm going to go dsbs.sba.gov. That's davidsam.boysam.sba.gov. So this is the dynamic small business search portal, and hopefully it's up to date. Okay, good. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to check service disabled veteran, including SDVOSB. So I'm going to check veteran-owned businesses. I'm going to see how many VOSB and SDVOSB companies are active in terms of being that are certified. And let's just kind of get an idea of what some potential backlog, and then how you as a listener and a viewer of this webcast can plan ahead to make sure that your transition with your certification, is done in a quick way, so that you're not caught up in, I'm trying to win a contract, but I don't have my certification. Okay, so let's look at the total amount here. So there's 43,000. Let me zoom in a little bit here so that everybody can see. So there's a total of 43,685,000 companies out there that have either VOSB or SDVOSB certifications. So which is about half of what WOSB and EDWSB was when the migration happened for those companies there. And I think the official was 2020. It had to be completed, and we're a year into it, and we're still not, there's still a tremendous backlog. So I see that, best case scenario, there may be a 6-month backlog if we're looking at apples to apples. But hopefully the SBA learned from what happened with WSB and EDWSB companies, and maybe they have better processes in place to help with the migration of VOSB, SDVOSB companies under the umbrella of the SBA. So that's my hope. What do you guys think?
I'm just hoping that the process is a streamlined one, and and not as it has been for the WOSB, because, I know, again, the SBA has been making some changes to their certification processes and adding, new to people to manage some of those processes. And I've listened in on several of their calls recently. And so it seems like they have made some good changes there. And so hopefully, it'll be for the better. Question for you, Abe, is the SDVOSB and the VOSB, do they expire, or is it for the life of the business?
They're very similar to the WSB certification. They do have an expiration, but not by date. It's done by NAICS Size Standards. So as long as you're considered small business, you stay as a VOSB and you stay as SDVOSB. So for example, if we're looking at size standard, let me pull up quickly here. SBA Size Standards. And then we can look at the table here and download the table.
Now, do they have to, is it like the 8A program that they have to recertify every year?
Yes, there is a renewal process every year, just like I think all certification, there is a renewal process here.
Mm-hmm.
But unlike the 8A program, which is a 9 years program, all of the other certification, as long as you maintain based upon your NAICS code. So let's assume that a company, if they're a apparel manufacturing and they do hosiery and sock mill, it's 750 employees. But let's go to more common stuff here. So let's get into some. Let's go into like, okay, so this is some IT NAICS codes here, right? IT NAICS code row 901 here, 541511. This is one of your NAICS code, Tiffany.
It is one of my NAICS code, yes. Yep.
So it's $30 million. So as long as you're $30 million or less as a veteran-owned business, you maintain your certification.
And that's over, and I believe it's the same for veteran-owned small businesses, but that calculation of 30 million is revenue over 5 years, the average of revenue over 5 years. It used to be 3 years, and then they just maybe like a year or two ago extended it to 5 years.
Yeah, so that's a good point there. So it's not like when your business hit $30 million and boom, you're out of the program.
Right.
You can hit 30 million and still be in the program because they take 5 years of total revenue and they average that out. As long as you're averaging $30 million or less, then you're still a small business. So that's a very good point of clarification there. Now let's look at a few other NAICS code here. Let's look at some construction. There's a lot of construction companies out there. So 236, let me get to the 236. So if you're in construction, so most construction falls under 236. So new single family housing is 39.5 million. If you are a residential remodeler, that is 39.5. Again, let me zoom in so people can see a little bit better. Zoom is down here. Yeah. And so this gives you a little bit perspective in terms of the industry. For those of you who are watching this episode, you're thinking like, okay, based upon your NAICS code, where do you fall? Most of you don't have to worry about NAICS code because some of you are smaller businesses right now. And so you've got, 39 million, 30 million. A few of you who are in manufacturing or distribution, your NAICS code is done by number of employees. So you don't have to really worry because, most number of employees is either 500 employees, 750 or 1,000 employees. So you'll maintain your small business status for a long time. So this is electrical contractors. Electrical contractors is 16.5 million. So lots of room for growth for most small businesses. So you can, like maybe you can hit 25 million, but your 5-year average may still be, 13 million, and you're going to be able to maintain your small business certification. Any other comments on this before we go back and talk about any other news for this week?
No, that was good information. I think it's helpful. Hopefully our viewers found it to be very helpful.
All right, so there you have it. So we've covered the one of the key things happening is Veterans Week, as well as our word for the day is SDVOSB and VOSB. We do have different classes and different things that we're probably going to cover in terms of how to do certifications and getting these certifications. We'll tackle that another episode, but there we go. Let's move on to other news.
So in other news, the vaccine mandates. So the federal contractors have been given the flexibility to enforce the COVID vaccine rules and to enforce the vaccination requirements for their workers who refuse the vaccination. And so the White House put out some additional guidance this week. The administration set a December the 8th deadline for contractors to implement those requirements, but it's not a hard deadline because that is, pretty soon. And a lot of businesses still need time to, get some things figured out. But contractors have to demonstrate that they are making a good faith effort to ensure the employees are getting vaccinated and that they have masking and social distancing policies in place. And, if they are not compliant, this could potentially result in the loss of a federal contract. I think we're probably a long way from that happening as far as, contracts being lost as a result of it. But but there is, movement and discussion. So, again, the government is giving, federal contractors the flexibility to enforce it at their level. So they're kind of like, you guys handle that. We don't have time to handle it, but we will. If you're not compliant, we might step in. So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
So Tiffany, you've been in the space and you've got active contracts. How has that been applied to your situation?
So obviously this is a topic that a lot of us in the federal space are talking about, business owners and folks who have active contracts. This is the topic of the moment right now, is the vaccine mandate. And it's interesting. I think it really highlights what the uniqueness of having a business that is a business, you're a private business, but you are performing services, or you are, one of your customers is the federal government. It's a very interesting place to be in terms of how you handle your employees and the complexities that, having a business that does government contracting can bring, that maybe someone who has commercial contracts or they only do commercial business that they don't have to necessarily face. On one hand, obviously we have to align ourselves with what benefits the nation, what benefits the federal government, because that's our customer. You want to serve your customer. It's the example of saying if someone is doing work in someone's home and that homeowner says, I only want people who are vaccinated to work in my home. Mm-hmm. As a service provider or vendor, you wouldn't necessarily, you just say, okay, either I can do the work, I'll get vaccinated, I'll do the work in your home, or hey, I don't want to necessarily do that, so I can't have you as a customer. So the federal contractors, we're in an interesting position where we have to balance, the rights and of our employees along with what's required of us as federal contracting companies. So it's been very interesting. There's a lot of talk, how we do this. So this update to the mandate has been something that, I think is welcomed overall from the federal contracting community, because it recognizes that we're still companies. We still have to abide by employment rules and making sure everyone's treated fairly, and exemptions and whether they're religious or medical. And this gives the federal contractor a little bit more flexibility in helping, in running your company as a private company. We're not federal employees. So and overall, it's been welcomed, is the general climate right now.
Mm-hmm.
The change.
Yeah. So with that there, do you think this is, because my own thought, and I'm not a scientist or doctor, so I'm hoping I'm completely wrong, but I don't believe COVID is going anywhere. There's going to be different variations, different strains. That's and it may get stronger over time, or it may get weaker over time and become more like the flu. But my own personal opinion is not going anywhere. So with a mandate like this here, at least for federal contractors, do you think it has a chance to permeate to becoming where they put it? Right now we have the vaccination card, right? Do you think it can become where it's on your passport, that if you, or on your driver's license, that if you don't have this vaccination, you're not going to get services. You're not going to be able to do other things. You think there's any way will we ever get to that point?
I don't think we know. I think we are where we are right now. And, the virus is something that obviously people in civil service and our leaders and decision makers are trying to work with scientists to figure out, how do we handle this? Science doesn't always have an immediate answer for things. More details have to come out, more evidence and observations. That's the nature of science. So we don't know how, as whatever happens is going to change, how is that going to change policy that's going to impact everyday citizens? I don't think we can say right now. I think that it's being taken at a point of where we are right now in this point in time. And I think that's the approach that the government's going to take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. We may, we just have to take a day at a time and adjust as we need to adjust. Now for, and then vaccination and the pandemic has become such a polarizing topic. There is the far right, far left, and those in the middle. Just for those, for our audience and all of our viewers, the Governese channel is a nonpartisan channel. So we don't care if you are blue or red. We don't care if you're purple. The only thing we care about is what, Crystal?
The green. Green contracts.
So we're all about the money. We're all about the green. So what our goal, our mission here is to have a show to help you access more green, more money. Yeah. And so we don't care if it's a Republican in office. We don't care if it's a Democrat in office. Those different party in office means that we help you to adjust according to their politics and according to the opportunities, and to adjust based upon the agencies that they tend to support. And like, for example, historically, if it's a Republican in the White House, DOD spending goes up. And so from our perspective, we help the business community to lean towards, how do you adjust? If you're in civilian agencies, how do you adjust to do more DOD contracts? Or if it's a Democrat, in office, then we help you. Most of them lean more to civilian agencies. So as a show, we try to help you to understand, how do you adjust from more DOD, less DOD contract into more civilian agencies? So that's kind of really what we're about. We're about the green. So with that said, any other comments, final comments about the vaccination mandate before? Is there a hard date, or do you have
December the 8th is the date that the White House has put out, but it's a soft date. It's not.
Okay.
Yeah, and I will say that, my experience with making sure we're complying with the mandate it is December 8th overall, but we have a few customers that have different dates, and those dates are before December 8th. Oh. And so, I think the highlight here is that as a federal contractor, you have to be willing to be able to handle change, uncertainty. And what I mean by uncertainty, everything's uncertain in life, right? But what I mean by uncertainty is whenever you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, there's uncertainty built into that. When you're doing work with the government, the uncertainty, it can have this like official feeling to it that can change from day to day. This thing that was so certain, it's a mandate, right? Oh, it's a mandate. You are required, you know? Oh, wait, it changed a little bit. And you have to be able to adjust to that change, or else you're going to really struggle and probably be very stressed out. And I think to your point, things change as administrations change, as leaders change. It is similar to private industry in that if there's a new owner of the company that you're doing work for, then maybe the company culture is going to change a little bit. You might have new policies. They might want to see something different. It's the same exact thing in government, except it's just as our administrations change, things change. And so you just have to be ready for that change. And I kind of have taken this as it's another example of there's a change that's going on. It's a big one, but as long as you're flexible and willing to, work with your customer, then you can get through it.
Yeah, and it's about being in compliance, right? If you don't like compliance, don't get into the government contracting space.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's a lot of the, some of the moans and groans that have been coming from some folks. That is my philosophy. That's our customer. A customer requires us to be compliant with certain things in order to be able to sell to them. That's the nature of this industry. If that's not your thing, you probably need to move over and stay in private and commercial industry. Because it's just a different animal. And compliance is king in federal contracting.
Absolutely. Well, with that said, let's go ahead and officially welcome our guests of the day here. For all of you watching this here, we're going to take a quick second to quick break here. And then when we come back, we're going to introduce our guest of the Governese show for today. So let's take a quick second break and we'll be right back. Hey, I want to take a minute to say thank you to our sponsors of the Governese channel here. And if you're watching this here, please visit our sponsors because they make it possible for us to do the Governese channel. Our first sponsor is the Government Contractors Association. The Government Contractor Association, or GCA, is a national trade association comprised of commercial contractors, small and large companies, and government agencies, federal agencies, state agencies, local agencies, government staff, universities, nonprofits, and many other entities out there. Their vision is to create access to help small businesses to get into the government market, to open doors for commercial companies into the government marketplace, and to support government agencies in accessing more qualified contractors. Their mission is to educate, facilitate, and advocate for their members based on becoming the premier government contractor association with their 3 pillars. Learn more about the Government Contractor Association at govassociation.org, govassociation.org, govassociation.org. Our second sponsor is GovGenie. GovGenie, stop wishing, start winning. GovGenie is on a mission to democratize government contracting opportunities for small women and minority-owned businesses. Their objective is to change the disparities for small businesses in the $2 trillion government marketplace. GovGenie is like LinkedIn for government contractors. It is a social CRM unifying the fragmented government procurement lifecycle and uses AI and ML to help users to socialize, foster relationships, find bids, search for teaming partners, manage proposals, source industry events, and facilitate the capture management process. This saves you, the user, money and time with one streamlined platform versus many other disparate software out there. Learn more about GovGenie at govgenie.com, GovGenie.com, govgenie.com. And our third sponsor is the Boom Group. The Boom Group is a benefits organization. They do benefits solutions to fit your needs. The Boom Group provides fringe benefit solutions designed with the competitive government contractor in mind. They offer compliant healthcare benefits designed for contractors working under the Service Contract Act, or SCA, or Davis-Bacon Act, DBA. and state prevailing wage and local living wage laws. The Boone Group builds better fringe benefit solutions for government contractors with our 3C's approach to benefits: compliance, competitiveness, and cost savings. Learn more about the Boone Group at www.boongroup.com or BOOGROUP.com. That's www.boongroup.com. Well, hey everybody, welcome to the webcast, the Governese Webcast, where we teach you how to speak government contracting and or the language of winning government contracts. So today, our guest speaker is a longtime friend of myself and Crystal and of GCA, the Government Contract Association. So we have here Tiffany Bailey of OSC Edge. So Tiffany, say hi to our audience here.
Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Abe. Thank you, Crystal.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. So what does OSC stand for? You know, a lot of people say,
I guess we should start there. So OSC stands for Open Sand Consulting, which was our original name before we rebranded years ago. And open meaning that we are open to technologies. We are professional services IT provider for the federal government. So the open stands for we're open to different technologies and vendors. We're not just, one type of technology. And a SAN is a storage area network. It's a device in a data center that helps store data. So that's how we started out. We started out in maintaining data storage for customers. And so over the years, we rebranded because we do a lot more than that today. And we became OSC Edge, and that we provide an edge in technology for federal customers.
Oh, well, I'm so glad you gave us the explanation, because I always thought it was the font.
Oh, yeah, I could see that. Yeah. No, it's not the font. Yeah, it's all, SAN is all capitalized.
Yeah. I just thought, okay, is she talking about the font script? And but here we go. So after all these years, I finally have the right definition of what OSC is all about there. So, well, welcome again. So tell us a little about yourself and then professionally, and then how you got into the government space.
Okay. Well, I am the president and CEO, as well as co-founder of OSC Edge. I have one other co-founder. His name is Lee Hendrickson. He's our CTO. And we have been around since 2008. I would say our active years where we really got off the ground and was fully, running is probably since 2010, 2011. So it's been unbelievable to me, but it's been an amazing ride over the last decade of running the company, learning about federal contracting, meeting amazing people. And so, my background is I specialize in technical communication, and I've taught technical communication. I've been a practitioner, and then I moved into IT and specifically IT communication. I did very briefly work for the Centers for Disease Control, but I did not work in a contracting capacity. So I think that's important to understand that I didn't have that inside track in terms of being in a contracting office when I worked there. But I did briefly work for the Centers for Disease Control. And then I, decided to step out on my own on faith and start OSC Edge. So that's sort of the background, my background in becoming an entrepreneur in this space.
Well, so let's talk about that. You said a very important word there, that you step out there on faith, because nothing was guaranteed. Entrepreneurship is about taking risks, or taking calculated risks more so than anything. So what led you to the point where you say, hey, you know what, I'm going to jump out there on faith and just go for it?
I think that, when I think of entrepreneurship, I think it's just something that some people just have a spark for. I always knew that I had a spark for that. When I seriously and honestly looked at myself and the different jobs that I had and how I thought about my job, just even in any position that I had, I always wanted to be innovative. I always wanted to find a way to improve the organization or the group that I was working in. I wanted to always find a better way to do my job, or maybe find a new and unique way to do my job. I think as you're taking stock of yourself and thinking about business in general and starting a business in general, you have to be honest with yourself and look at what kind of traits you have. If you lean towards those traits, you may be an entrepreneur. You may have that spark in you. And so I always had that spark. And as I was working at CDC, I started learning a little bit about these federal contractors that I would work with. And, I was always thinking of ways that the government could be improved or do things more efficiently. And I would, suggest my ideas. But at the time I'm an employee. So that kind of led me to think, well, what if I had my own business and I just offered these innovative ideas to the government as a service? Then what would that look like? And that helped me start really visualizing, hey, I could probably do this. And, I'm capable of I just need to learn, how do you do business with the government? So I had that spark. I knew that I needed to learn how to do business with the government. And then also I had to have faith. You just have to really believe in yourself. It's a risk, but I had faith and I just believed in my vision and I kept it very squarely in front of me.
Oh, I love that word in terms of you saying, hey, you start visualizing it before you got there. So that's really a key component of entrepreneurship, is to see what the future might be and dream. And if you don't dream and visualize it, then you there's nothing to really shoot for. So I really love that thought there.
Yeah. And a couple of similarities for you and I that you mentioned there. Mine was definitely a faith walk. I mean, I stepped out on faith without even knowing what was coming next. And the other interesting part is I stepped out from a CDC role as well. I wasn't a full-time CDC employee, but I was a contractor to the CDC.
I didn't ever realize we shared that.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So sounds to me like CDC is pushing out a whole lot of entrepreneurs over there.
I think there's a lot of people at CDC with entrepreneurial spirit, and that may be just the nature of the agency. There's a lot of extremely smart people at CDC, thinkers, and you've met lots of people there, and people are doing all kinds of things. It's an interesting agency. Yeah,
it is.
So it looks like they need to set up a CDC incubator, entrepreneurship incubator over there, helping their people.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because a lot of people actually retire from there and they go back as contractors and start their own businesses.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, and then a lot of the people that work for me when I was working for a contractor are now small business owners or people who have gone through the 8A program. They've made millions and now they live a good life. So it happens. So.
Yeah. I would also say, just wanted to know when we're talking about faith, I think the other side of that coin is to surround yourself by others who have faith and people who support your vision and also have their own vision. It's important to stay away from very negative people. You have some people out there who are just like, oh, you can never do that. What makes you think you can do that? I know personally, I've never had that approach towards others. Someone tells me about an idea. Tell me a little bit more about that. Oh yeah, I could see how that could work. Well, have you ever thought about this?
Right.
And I always try to surround myself by people who kind of operate in that same way, which brings me back to GCA. And I would definitely say folks at GCA, especially Abe. Abe is a visionary. Abe also supports other people's vision. It's not these crazy ideas. It's not so crazy that you actually can have worked at CDC and then start your own business and maybe CDC becomes your customer. That's not a wild idea. That's within the realm of possibility. So I will say the other side of that is you have to surround yourself by people who think in that same way and not people who don't ever have those kind of visions or immediately talk negative to themselves as soon as they have an idea.
Yeah, I agree. Because you're going to have those that say, why are you doing that? What, like you said, what makes you think you can do that? You can't do that.
What makes you think you can do that? I've actually gotten that question a lot over the years. What made you think you could do that? And it's a really interesting story. It's really interesting question, because it's almost like someone scolding you a little bit.
Right.
How did you think you could do that?
Right.
And my response used to be, I never thought I couldn't do it.
Exactly. Why can't I?
I just didn't think I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I see other people doing it. I just need to figure out what they did and do what they're doing.
Exactly. Because all things are possible.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that reminds me of one of my very first business. I was about 19, 20 years old. And I was, I see your University of Georgia diploma there.
Oh, yeah.
So I went to UGA and I was in transition. And so while I was transitioning from UGA to other things, I was working at a company. And, I decided that I want to go and start a small business. And this is family, right? This is not an outside person. This is family members. And I was sharing my dream of building a small business, and family members that you think that would be like your greatest fans, right? And your champion that's gonna lift up your arm and say, "What do you need? How can I help you to go and build your dreams?" They said, "What? That's a bad idea. You're leaving that job to build a business? Are you crazy?" And of all business, why that business, right? Because at that time, the business I was starting was a baseball card comic book shop. As a young kid, I want to do something that I knew and that I loved and that I enjoyed. And people just thought I was crazy, leaving a job that I've been promoted and all these different things into a baseball card shop of all things. And so it was hard when the people that you want to support you the most, they become the naysayers.
Right.
Yes.
And it's hard. So I fully understand that.
I think that that's probably not talked about enough, because maybe there's just something automatic that you just expect the people that are just naturally around you to support your idea. But what I've come to realize is that everyone's different, everyone's unique. Sounds like Abe was the one in the family who's always trying something new, or maybe who feels okay getting outside of his comfort zone. And that's what makes Abe, right? I think what makes Crystal, what makes Tiffany. And it took a long time for me to come and accept that my family's my family, but I'm not my family. I am my individual self with my uniqueness, and my family members have their unique thing. Somebody's always really good at doing the potato salad at cookouts, that's the cooking, that kind of thing. And so it's a little bit about, I think over the years I've learned a little bit of that about accepting who you are. And once you accept that this is me, this is how I am, then you don't necessarily feel the sting of the disappointment. That family isn't just all, hey, oh yeah, we're gonna chip in like it's a sitcom, we're all gonna do this together. Right. It doesn't always work out like that. Some families are like that, some aren't. And that's okay. But you can create your own family. And I think of it as your business family. Absolutely. And that's how I think of you, Abe, and Crystal, you're part of my business family. And that's just a connection you have, a human connection you have with those folks.
Yeah, I think it's very important, to have family, blood family, and then also a business family. So I think that's very important. Comment you just shared there. Everybody needs a tribe. And if you don't have a tribe around you, entrepreneurship is a lonely road sometimes. And so you need a tribe around you, those that will say, hey, you know what, I've been there, or I tried that and it didn't work, but here's what I learned from it. You might want to consider this other option here. So you need other people around you. It may not necessarily be your immediate family that raised you up and so forth. And that doesn't mean that what they're saying is wrong also, because what they're saying is exactly right for them. It's just not right for you.
It's exactly right for them.
So, well, with that said there, how did you get into your first government contract? What was that process like?
Oh, I don't know if I call it a process in the beginning because I didn't understand the process. I was learning the process as I was doing the process. But basically, in a nutshell, I teamed up with my business co-founder, Lee, and though, we both have technical expertise, he obviously has had his hands on the keyboard. He's a practitioner. And so the first thing is I made sure there was actually a business there. You have to take care of the housekeeping first. Are you properly registered? What does your marketing material look like? Do you have a brand? Now, does it have to be something that you spend a bunch of money on for your quote unquote brand? No, but you have to have a sense of identity as a company, even if it's just yourself or just two people. Like, who are we? What are we selling? And why should our customer, in this case, the government, buy from us? So at first I started with that kind of sense, making sure all that was strong, because that wasn't there, right? In the beginning, you can't just kind of walk in and say, this is my company, but you don't have anything. You don't have any cars. You don't have any collateral. So we started off that way. And then once I got that in place, some marketing, understanding what does a capability statement look like? What should my business card have on it? We started looking for opportunities. The Lee already knew some people in this very specific space that we were looking for. But that helped somewhat. But what really helped is that we just did the footwork. We looked for opportunities. And we worked together. I would look for opportunities, and then he would review the opportunity to see, can we technically do this? Can we respond to this and tell the government this is what we do and convince them? And once we did that, we were in a situation where the opportunity that we wanted to go after, it was actually only for large businesses. So this is where we were a little naive, right? We were trying to understand how the government contracting world works, because I had not met Abe yet. And this idea that some things are put out for small businesses and some things are put out for large businesses. And then even if they're put out for small businesses, there's all these different categories, 8A, woman-owned. I didn't really quite understand that. So we had to figure that out first. And we realized the opportunity we were looking at was for large business. So we started calling large businesses, which, looking back, seemed like a completely crazy thing to do, because it would be the equivalent of, you have a product idea, you just decide you're going to call it Walmart and say, hey, Walmart, I got this idea for a product. Will you put it in your stores? That can feel very scary. But what you'll actually find is that sometimes you really can make a phone call and you can get someone. Depends on how persistent you are. How many people are you calling? We just happened to call someone at one particular large company that they wanted to bid on the opportunity, but they didn't have the support for writing the proposal. And we just kept, going until we found that person. So what we were presenting to him didn't sound like a crazy idea. He had a problem. He wanted to bid on the contract, but he had no support within his organization to get the proposal writers and all that. So what we offered is say, hey, you know what? We'll help you write the proposal. If we win, then obviously, we're teamed together and we would be the subcontractor on this contract. And that is how we went after our very first opportunity, is that we had something to offer, and we found someone with a need that needed to be filled. In this situation, that large contractor, they worked as our customer. They were our immediate customer, and then our end customer was the federal government. And we did help them write that proposal, and we did win. And that sort of proved ourselves. And then we formed a stronger partnership with them. And then we found other companies to form partnerships with. And then next thing you know, we're a sub on another contract, right? And then we're learning more about government contracting, meeting more people, and found another large company and just started networking with them, became a sub, until finally it just kind of took on a life of its own. And we realized we were building a network. So I would say the network is essential, and knowing either people in the government, knowing people who already have companies that are established and doing some type of work. In a nutshell, I would say that's how, we landed our first contract.
Okay, wow. So there's a lot of things to break that apart with. Lots of good nuggets from that just quick segment there. But let me make sure I understood what you just said there. You have no past performance, no experience in the government market, no
Right.
contract history, no relationships. You took out the phone, took out the good old trusty phone, and you say,
Mhm.
hey, we're just gonna dial for dollar. We're gonna call some companies.
Just
We
gonna
found
die.
an opportunity, and we're gonna call some companies to see if they want to partner with us on it. You know, in the government space, it's called teaming. You didn't know that it was called teaming.
I didn't know that's what it was called.
You just said, I need a partner.
Yeah.
And someone said yes to you?
And someone said yes.
Wow.
And so that's this, people, okay, so, there's this theory that part of success is, part preparation and timing and luck, and knowledge. You have to kind of know these things. I think you can have a little bit of those things and it can all fall together. And in this situation, the person that we called up, they needed a win. And they were at a point where it's like, hey, what do they have to lose?
Mhm.
What do they have to lose? We could speak intelligently about the RFP and what the RFP was asking for. So we knew how to do the work. So that's one thing, know what you're actually offering.
Mhm.
You can't go in and just say, well, I'm a small business, and no, you can't. You have to know what you're offering. And we were able to communicate to that person, wait a minute, we know what the government is asking for. We can help you. We can help you with this. And we just found that person who needed help. And I think that's a different way that I had to learn how to think. Who needs help and how can I help them?
And your
Wow,
persistence led to partnership.
The persistence. Yeah, it wasn't like,
Yeah.
and I always have this funny story that the time that I had one of these calls, I was actually at work. I was at the job I was working at, and I was trying to find a place I could take this call. There was nowhere I could take this call. And I knew, I was like, I gotta take this call. So I was like kind of squatting behind a bush outside the building, having this conference call. And later on, one of my coworkers saw me and said, Tiffany, I think I saw you. Were you outside by a bush around lunch? What were you doing? Are you okay? I was like, oh yeah. I had no explanation for why am I hiding behind this bush, kind of peeping up, trying to have a phone call. But that's a part of that persistence. I wasn't going to let the fact that I didn't have some big office that was private, I was in a cubicle. I couldn't necessarily have a call in the cubicle, but I didn't let that stop me. I couldn't get to my car that day. I didn't have enough time to get to the car. So I had to figure it out. The bush was my office that day. So, part of that persistence is that also. You just not let anything stop you. You become resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I was my first experience with cutting my teeth at being a resourceful entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, there's been other people that the bush has been a good starting point. So
Yes. This is my office.
Yeah. So if a burning bush can be a good starting point, a bush at your old job is a good starting point. So you took break from your full-time job. You were working full-time while you
I was working full-time. Yeah, I had a full career. At the time I was a technical communicator, and family thought I was completely crazy to leave a very secure full-time job in a field that I had, gone to school for, to do this thing. It just sounded completely like, what is going on with Tiffany? But it wasn't as spontaneous to me as it probably seemed to them, because it was something I had felt inside for a long time. Every time I'd walk home, I walk to my car at the end of the day, I'd have a long walk to my car, and I'd walk, and I just wouldn't listen to music or anything. I just quietly, walk and think about, what does my business look like? I would visualize it. What does it look like? And I would do it every single day I walked to my car. until finally I took action on it, and nothing could really stop me from making that vision a reality.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So-
and we keep talking about vision, and that's really key. Just this weekend, as a matter of fact, I revisited my vision board from like 2018. And so there are a lot of things that are still a part of my vision that I'm working towards. I may have added a couple of things to it, but yeah, so you definitely have to have that vision, make that vision plain, and have a plan and work that plan. So yeah, vision, persistence, partnerships, those are some key words that Tiffany has mentioned here today. So absolutely got to have that vision.
Yeah.
Yes. So staying on the same point here in terms of your first contract here, what was it like what were you feeling when you got the first contract, and how much was that first contract that you got?
So I think probably it was a mixture of excitement. It was a little bit of like a Wile E. Coyote finally caught the road runner. Oh my gosh, what do I do now? I've been chasing this thing and it's happened. So it was a mixture of all those things. And that contract, that first one, the overall value of the contract was $13 million.
Wow. So your first government contract was $13 million.
Very first one, yes. Now the bulk of that went to the prime, which was the large company, and that's okay. I'm also a firm believer in, anything that's given to you it's a gift, it's an offering, and as long as you're open to accepting it, then more abundance will come to you. So at the time, we're like, okay, I'm willing to work as much as I need to. I need to prove myself. This is my chance, So yeah, and it was a pretty amazing thing. And I don't even know if at the time I was so naive in some ways about government contracting and the process and how it worked, that I knew that it was like, whoa, but I didn't realize how like, whoa, it was, as I realized more and more about what is this whole process and procedure, and how do I repeat this and make it happen again? And that's where I had to continue educating myself on government contracting and learning the process. And again, talking to people and not letting that one thing kind of blind me into thinking I knew everything, right? I just moved from the place where this did happen. Wait a minute, I know there's more I need to know so that I can continue doing this.
So $13 million. So I would imagine that there's an element of that there where you were scared at the same time.
Extremely scared, yes.
Yes. So how were you able to fund that? Even though the large prime was the main contract holder and you were subcontractor on that, what was your portion, and how were you able to mobilize that? Talk us through the process trying to figure out how to mobilize on that contractor.
Oh wow, that's a good question. So at the time, we were able to negotiate in the teaming agreement, which this was a little unusual, but some of that naivete that we had came in handy, where we negotiated our teaming agreement as a very specific work share down to like what exactly we would be doing. Now, usually work shares will say a percentage of work, and that's even how I do it now. But I knew so little, we knew so little that we were like, no, we want you to put in there that we're gonna have a help desk person. And when the guy's like, nobody does that. What are you talking about? You're asking for crazy stuff. Well, why can't you just do it? Okay, well, nobody asked for it, but we're asking for it. We asked, and I think it was just so strange to them, and maybe in some way they knew that we were very greedy, that they were like, you know what, whatever, it's a teaming agreement. We don't even know if we're gonna get this at all. Sure. So that actually ended up helping, because that way we could plan a little bit better in terms of what we needed for capital in order to pay folks, should we win it? Because obviously you have a gap between when the work starts and when you actually can invoice and get paid. We were able to negotiate the net terms and the subcontract that time, the standard for that company was 45 days, but we were able to renegotiate that to 30 days so that we would be paid within 30 days of invoicing. That helped significantly too. And then we did have to look for some financial assistance. In the early years, we used a lot of factoring for our invoices, which helped. I'm a big fan. It works, especially for our particular industry. And that helped us bridge that gap until the money started really coming in and we could build up our payroll amount that we needed.
Mm-hmm. So they did the bulk of the work. You guys did, some of the work. And then you're a brand new company, you have no money, you have no financial history. And the way you overcame that was you discovered factoring, and factoring became your savior in terms of being able to cash flow the projects.
Yeah. I want to say, I think that was around the time that you and I met. I think one of the very first questions when I was introduced to you, Abe, I had a question about mentoring and then also factoring. So yeah, that's how we did it. We used factoring, and then eventually you get to the point where you can maybe, that's kind of like crawling, and then you can start walking where you can actually apply for a line of credit, which I recommend people do as soon as they can, because you just want to have that, even if you don't use it, it helps to build your company credit, So we were building our credit history as well, which helped us to get more credit. It's just like personal credit. And it also gave us confidence financially that we could go after more opportunities. We could determine what size we could go after. You do have some people who are just out here and they're like, I'm going to just try to get $100 million contract. Well, I mean, that would be amazing, but how are you going to finance that?
Right. Right.
And so that first initial subcontract, though the amount that came to us was, smaller than the overall amount of the contract, it was still enough to get us started on that financial journey that you need in order to sustain the company.
Well, before we move on to another area, I want to summarize what you shared there. So what you did was you went to a large company and you said, hey, I will do all the hard lifting. I will write the proposal. I will read the solicitation. I will put everything together, a plan, everything together. And all you have to do is review it, make sure that it meets your requirements. And then we'll submit it in your name, not our name, not OSC Edge. We'll submit it in the prime's name. And so in that situation, the prime, that was kind of like, what do we have to lose? And I think that was your comment earlier. So for those of you who's watching this episode here, when you're approaching a large company to be a subcontractor, or even using your certification so that you can be the prime, they can be the sub, don't lead with your certification. Don't lead with, hey, lead with value. Lead with, this is what I bring to the table. I'm going to make it where it's easy for you to make a decision. So I think if I have to summarize it, I think in the absence of knowing what to do and how to do it, your technique is actually the most important technique in terms of getting a large prime to work with you. And so I thought that was very important. I call it the carrot technique. When you approach somebody, you can use a stick to hit the horse to make the horse move, or you can use a carrot to get the horse to move to you. And what you did was you used the carrot technique. You offer up a carrot to this huge a horse to say, hey, come to me. And the horse says, okay, we got nothing to lose. We got everything but a carrot to gain. So they engage you because you gave them something that they currently didn't have. You gave them something that allows them to have a chance to do something that they didn't have a chance at. So I think that's a very important technique there, is to use the carrot technique, approach a large prime. Don't go in there with your hands out like, give me, right?
Right, exactly.
You went there and you say, hey, I have something I want to bring to the table. I'm going to add value to this here. I'm going to make it easy for you to say yes. So any other tips you can share from your first contract win there outside of what we've discussed?
I definitely would say that prepare yourself to be organized and start thinking about not just how you're going to provide whatever goods or services that you are proposing, but what will it look like for your company operating on a day-to-day basis as you start providing these things. That's very important because a large part of business in general, but very, very important in federal contracting, is to be very organized and to be very structured in how your company internally runs. So that was something I learned very quickly. Luckily, I picked up on it very fast and sort of started building that structure from day one. And that allowed me it makes it sustainable. Because if you're all over the place, you don't understand how to structure any of these things. And I mean, when I say structure, I'm talking about very simple things. How should the folders on your computer be structured so that you can easily pull something up within 30 to 60 seconds of being asked about that thing? Because that's what it's like. It could be a matter of someone could come to you and say, you could just have a casual conversation, and it's with a contracting officer. The contracting officer might just out of the blue say, you know what? I actually have an opportunity right here. I think might be a fit. Can you send me your 8A certification letter? You want to be able to send that contracting officer that 8A certification letter immediately.
Right.
Not, 2 days later. You want to be able to put your, hey, I can send it to you right now. Here you go. So I learned that quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really key, is to make sure that you stay organized, and for new business, you have no structure, right? No infrastructure in place. So you have to figure out, how am I going to stay organized? How am I going to manage all this here? Especially right now, there's a lot of new rules and policies coming in place where you have to organize not only your things, but anything that you touch that's government information, that is not, control unclassified information, may not be top secret data, because those things, you're not going to be able to touch those things on your behalf anyways. And so the CUI stuff, you have to have a game plan for those things there. So yeah, that's a very key point there. So let's talk about, you won that first contract without your women's certification, without your 8A certification. So let's talk about your transition from that to other contracts, and then eventually how you got to your certification.
Okay. So for me personally, it was personally important to me that I learn government contracting and really get my feet wet and performing on a contract and understanding all of that and proving that my company can do the work, just standing alone without any certifications. That was personally very important to me. I think people can have different, philosophies. If you want to just hurry up and get a certification, immediately jump into it, that's fine too. So some people, they prefer to have their certifications in place before, they go after contracts. And I think it's no right way. You can do, it's how you want to set up your strategy for your business and winning government contracts. But for myself, just simply because of the space that I was working in, and I mean, I think, to be quite candid, it was IT. There's not a lot of women-owned businesses in IT. There's not a lot of businesses that are owned by people of color, so I wanted to just basically learn everything I could, improve the merits of my company and the services that we did. And then I also wanted to build a strong reputation and give myself some time to become known, my company to become known, so that when I applied for my 8A certification, speaking specifically right now about 8A certification, that clock started, I wasn't losing time by trying to make rounds and people to, just know who I am. And so by the time I did apply for my 8A certification, basically I applied for it. I got my 8A certification, and 2 weeks after I received my letter, I had an 8A contract, because I had been working, marketing to this one particular customer who eventually was like, okay, when are you going to get your 8A your certification so I can help you with this particular requirement that we have. But I did get my woman-owned before that. That helped because even though at the time, they had woman-owned requirements that they had to meet, but it's not like how it is now, right? But that helped me with networking. I got to know the SBA, I got to know folks. It was a way to open up an introduction with a contracting office. Hi, I'm a woman-owned small business. Yes, I'm certified woman-owned small business. I like to talk to you about my capabilities. And so that certification in the beginning, it was for just open doors in terms of marketing. And so I think that's a really good way to think about certifications. And so that's why I say it's a strategy, depending on, do you want to just get them up front and go from there? Or do you want to try to, get something under your belt and then get your certification?
Yeah, certification is not always the first step. And I think a lot of small businesses make the mistake of, oh, I'm gonna go get my 8A certification. And then they sit on it for 3-4 years and they never get anything until they finally get to a point where they're comfortable enough to have a intelligent conversation with a contracting officer, with a program manager, to where they start to trust you to award you contract. So I think that's very key in terms of knowing when is the right time for your certification based upon your company and where you're at. Now, like if somebody who's been in the government space as a contracting officer and they retired, they start their small business, they may need to go after their certification quickly. If somebody who's brand new, no experience, no nothing, they may not need to go and get their 8A certification immediately. So I think that's a very key consideration there for businesses out there.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is exactly right. I mean, I have met people who, there's a gentleman, he has a phenomenal business here in Atlanta, and he was once a contracting officer. And so, yeah, it made sense. He had this different understanding. So I think one of the key things is don't necessarily do what everybody else is doing. You can get the information of what your different strategies can be, but you have to choose the one that meets you where you are at that moment. And at that moment, I knew that where I was, it wouldn't have been beneficial to me to immediately jump in and get that certification on day one. I would have burned a lot of precious time in the 8A program that I knew I didn't want to lose. So you have to sort of, again, it's about knowing yourself and what you want to do.
So let's talk about, we covered a little about your certifications. And so when did you actually get your certification from the point of your first contract? About how many years in before you got your women and your 8A certification?
So woman-owned small business, this was when SBA, this is before the SBA started doing the certification specifically. So I got my woman-owned small business the very first year that I really set up, which was through a third-party certification. So I went through third-party certification organization that could certify me as a woman-owned small business, and I got that first. Once I got that, I waited about 3 years. So I got about, maybe I say 2 subcontracts under my belt, and was really out there pounding the pavement, getting to know people, networking. And then I applied for my 8A certification and then got that and, started that clock. So that was my timing. I got my WSB first.
Okay. So it was about 1.5 years, almost 2 years in your business before you started to apply for your 8A?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think, if let's say if I had, if I were an SDVOSB, that would probably be a certification I would try to get immediately around with the WSB. I think 8A is slightly different because there's a clock ticking. But with the other ones, Hub Zone, there's no clock, there's no clock ticking. If I had known then what I knew now, I would have gotten the Hub Zone immediately, but I didn't know that. I wasn't I didn't have that knowledge at the time,
Mhm.
but I would have gotten that hub zone immediately along with the woman-owned small business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I attempted to get the 8A certification pretty early on in my business, and I was unsuccessful in that. And I think that was a blessing in disguise, because as I sit here, almost 4.5 years later, I wasn't ready.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I would have just lost a lot of precious time. So I agree. Timing, needs to be spot on with going after that 8A certification, and you need some experience
Mhm.
with the government, preferably, but definitely need business experience. Whereas I was, still, starting the business to do government contract and didn't know what I didn't know. So it was definitely a blessing in disguise. So, I guess I thank the SBA for that. But so as I said, I'm
That's how
waiting.
it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah. I'm waiting to hear back. My application is in DC now, so hopefully, I feel definitely more prepared.
Mhm.
Even though I'm sure you probably think you're prepared, but here I am today.
Yeah.
But yeah, good information.
So
Mhm.
Crystal, for that, did the SBA deny it, or did they just tell it, they just say, hey, resubmit at a different time? Which one did
Well,
they do to you?
yeah, I mean, they had some questions, and I mean, it had been a year-long process. I was just basically done with it at that point in time, because I was probably, because I just really didn't fully understand everything surrounding it, that I got frustrated and decided to just not appeal. But yeah, I could have gone through the appeal process, but I chose not to do it at that time. But I think that was a good decision on my part as well,
Mhm.
because I definitely wasn't ready. So just a lot of things that I've had to learn from then to now, that I think would better prepare me to maneuver the program. And I think, one of the other things, just back to some of the things that Tiffany has mentioned, the subcontracting, I think that's just like a really good strategy for a lot of us that are just, smaller businesses in the government space. You think you want, to win these big $1 million contracts off the top, but you really, if you haven't had any experience with the federal government, that may not be what you want off the top. So I always, in talking to people, and just with myself, with my business, doing subcontracting is a strategy, so that we can continue to learn under a prime, so that we're ready when it's time for us to to be put forth as a prime and go after prime contracts. So yeah, subcontracting definitely a good strategy that I use. It worked for Tiffany, and I highly recommend it.
I wanted to say something, Crystal, about what you were saying about being ready. If you get, let's say you do land this big, huge contract, and you're not ready. Every once in a while, you'll hear it in the news, and there will be a company that's a small company, and it'll just sometimes be just a little splash in the news that the person, the company was, it's one person, and they got a contract that was, $100 million, but and now they can't deliver on it, and they can't deliver anything. And I'm not saying that would happen all the time, but it does come up in the news every once in a while. Now I look back on those stories, I'm like, what would make you think, oh my goodness, that sounds like a nightmare,
Right?
Can you really go from you basically get your LLC and just go after something, and maybe you are like, you just get for some reason, you catch this big fish, but it may require you to ship something somewhere, or how do you understand that government has received the product? You have to learn that somehow, and the best way to learn it is to do it with someone who's already gone through it, and you can watch it. But occasionally you do see those stories pop up in the news. It doesn't usually turn out well.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes people end up in jail because they can't deliver, and
they cannot deliver. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
they don't terminate the contract. They say you lied to the government, saying that you can't deliver.
Yeah. In some of those cases, I look at them and it comes up on the news. Like, I wonder if that's really what happened, or did this person just really not understand and bit off more than they chew, and now they're facing some really big consequences. But it's important to learn from others and to partner and to basically have resources you can go back to and ask questions. I did have someone at one point who was kind of in that, she just started LLC, like one day, next thing she comes to me, oh, I'm gonna go after this contract. Look at the contract's $50 million. Well, what? Wait, have you ever done this before? Do you realize what this is? You got a whole bunch of requirements here and a lot of bar clauses. Do you understand any of this? What you're signing up for? No, okay. Let's just take a step back. It's okay to do small steps.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very important there. So we've been talking about subcontracting, and your first few projects were subcontracting work. So in the life of your business, what percentage of your revenue has come from being a subcontractor, and what percentage of it has come from you being a prime?
That's a good question. So over the years, imagine if you had a pie chart, you would have seen this pie chart that, was 100% subcontracting. And over the years, you'll see that subcontracting part has gotten smaller and smaller, almost every single year. So now, more than 75% of my contracts are prime contracts, and the remainder are sub. I don't think I would ever, as a company, I don't know if I'd ever want 100% prime contracts. There are so many benefits to being a subcontractor in certain situations. It really varies from contract to contract. But I use my subcontracting experience to build up my experience so I would be ready to be a prime. And so now I can prime contracts. I understand what it takes to administer a contract and to even have subs. Like what is that whole process? So now I have subs and I'm working with companies and but it takes time to learn that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You need that time to cut your teeth and to build that history, the past performance, so that you can be a more effective prime there. So in the life of your business, about how much total revenue have you guys done through OSC Edge?
Total revenue,
most of it's public information, but just from your guesstimate, what
total revenue over the life of the company. At this point, it's definitely surpasses $100 million if you combine everything over the years. So we've been very blessed and also been very strategic in how we've gone over. How we've gone after things that we've gone after. Now that's obviously a total combined year over year would be that, but I've met people who have been have companies that have been government contracting longer than I have, and they're still considered small businesses, but their revenues are over like $100 million a year. So it is definitely possible. You can keep going. I mean, lots of companies like that now. And it's just a matter of, again, it's not an overnight get rich quick type of thing. It is you're learning, you're growing, and organic growth, in my opinion, is probably the best growth.
Yeah, and I do know companies, entrepreneurs out there that say, hey, they tell me, they say, Abe, I don't want to build $100 million per year company, because that's not the type of company I want to manage. I want to build a $5-10 million a year revenue company. I get paid a comfortable salary of $250,000 a year, and I manage a small team, manage a few sub, and that's what I want to build. And then I want to have an exit plan later. But that's some companies, some entrepreneurs out there, they don't want to create a monster. They want to create a lifestyle, right?
And I think that's, again, is knowing yourself. I'm probably in the camp of I'd never want a monster. I mean, I have met people who have the companies that are $300 million a year, and that sounds amazing, right? But with that $300 million a year, I can tell you that they have a lot on them. And I think a sweet spot is where you are, it's manageable for you. you have a nice lifestyle. There really is enough to go around for everyone. You know, you're providing people with jobs. You know, that's one of the things that's important for me personally. I want to be able to provide people with jobs. I like the idea that I'm creating something, you know, from nothing. It's not so much the dollar amount of revenue that is what's driving me. It's that I'm building something, and only I can say when whatever I'm building is complete and it's at a point, you know, that I feel like it's manageable, or it's not manageable, it's getting out of control and I can't manage it. And that's something to know. But yeah, I know people who are very comfortable and, you know, it's a few $100,000 a year and they're very content. I remember early on, I met a gentleman who was doing government contracting and he was making a few $100,000. He was making good six figures, you know, comfortable lifestyle. He had already retired from federal service. And he said, oh, no, I'm happy right here. You know, he's like, I don't have much stress. I get to control my schedule. He can go on vacation when he wants to. You know, he was able to pay off his house. That's a good place to be. Yeah. So it's definitely have to take stock in who you are and what you want to do.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I have another question. And you talk about you started this here with a business partner. Mm-hmm. Some people go into this here alone. Some people go into it with a business partner. And absolutely, I don't want you to throw Lee under the bus or yourself under the bus.
If we were here, you're probably like, she's about to throw me under the
bus. So, but in a partnership, part of this show here is we keep it real with people. Mm-hmm. And in any partnership, there's the ups and downs, and there's the squabbles, and there's the challenges, and there's trying to meet each other in the middle, trying to understand each other. It's a marriage, right? When two people come together to build a company, I'd like to hear more about the challenges of having a partner, the benefits of having a partner, and what you guys have to overcome to build a successful company together.
Yes, having a partner is something that I think the things that happen between business partners is still not a topic in entrepreneurship that people like really put out there. I mean, but some of us, we know what's going on behind the scenes, and, you know, they're fighting, they have a disagreement about all kinds of things, or they're not talking to each other right now because one wants to go get a office, decides they want to go rent out or buy an office space. And the other one's like, no, man, we don't need that. We actually need a company vehicle, right? And they're going at it, you know, going at each other. I've seen all those kind of things behind the scenes. We haven't had those types of issues. Lee and I have two very different personalities, and Abe knows this for certain, that we have two very different personalities. The team we work with, they find it absolutely amusing and they love it. You know, they're like, this is like, they're watching a reality TV show every single day. And it can be frustrating when someone isn't agreeing with you and someone isn't, you know, you think your idea is so great and you're just like, why can't they see it? This is what we need to do. But what it's taught me is personally about my ego, that to take a step back. Well, you know, I really think about it. Man, there are some holes in my idea. I didn't think about this thing that Lee brought up. You know, it seems so clear to me. And you have to be willing to pause and really truly consider this other person's point of view, and why are they suggesting this? Why are they coming from that perspective? I think the most successful people that I've met, they value diversity of thought, right? And they're not just caught up in this is, you know, this idea of this is what a business person looks like, and this is how a business person is. You know, you value people for their individual traits and talents and uniqueness, and even if that comes with quirks or anything that comes along with that, and you work through it and you find a common ground. But you always have to keep, one thing you do always have to have is you have to be on the same page about your vision and your mission. If you're not on the same page with that, even when those differences come up, it's gonna probably be disastrous. If one person wants to build the monster $300 million company, and the other person just wants to be able to have a company where if they want to take off and go fishing for the rest of the day, you're probably those are some core differences that are going to cause problems. But if you both are on the same page and say, hey, you know what we want to do? We want to build something. We want to make sure people have jobs and they enjoy working, where they are. What does this look like? And how do we maintain it? You may have different ideas on how to get there, but you're both trying to get to the same place. And I think that's what helps a partnership, essentially. And then you build trust from there in your partner.
Yeah, that's really key is when you have a partner, especially someone very different from you, and you need to create that trust, and you gotta, and trust doesn't come easy, right? Trust is maintained, is built over time. You've got to, and sometimes it's a give and take type of relationship. It can't just always be your way, and it can't just always be their way. It has to be where you celebrate the differences of both of you. And that's what makes a great team. If your partner is exactly like you, that's not a real good partnership.
It's probably not a good partnership.
Yeah. So, well, hey, it's been a lot of fun learning about your experiences, and you've shared a lot of good points here. We are at the end of the show here. So, any last closing comments? Any tips you have for anybody before we wrap up here?
I would say always be in a learning mode, and that you can learn from anyone, no matter where they are in their journey. Even if you may be a little bit ahead of them on this journey, but you can still learn from that person, and you can learn from the person who's further in their journey. I always be in learning mode, both formally and informally.
Mm-hmm. Keep learning. Yep, absolutely.
Learning, yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, with that said, thanks so much, Tiffany, for joining us on this Governance.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed this, and I appreciate you inviting me to join you.
Yes, thank you so much. This was awesome. This was awesome. I can't wait to go back and watch the replay again, but I've been taking notes. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, hey, signing off with the Governese Webcast here. Thanks, Tiffany, for joining us. And Crystal, my co-host, always a pleasure having you with me here. So we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hey, I want to take a minute to say thank you to our sponsors of the Governese channel here. And if you're watching this here, please visit our sponsors because they make it possible for us to do the Governese channel. Our first sponsor is the Government Contractors Association. The Government Contractor Association, or GCA, is a national trade association comprised of commercial contractors, small and large companies, and government agencies, federal agencies, state agencies, local agencies, government staff, universities, nonprofits, and many other entities out there. Their vision is to create access to help small businesses to get into the government market, to open doors for commercial companies into the government marketplace, and to support government agencies in accessing more qualified contractors. Their mission is to educate, facilitate, and advocate for their members based on becoming the premier government contractor association with their 3 pillars. Learn more about the Government Contractor Association at govassociation.org, govassociation.org, govassociation.org. Our second sponsor is GovGenie. GovGenie, stop wishing, start winning. GovGenie is on a mission to democratize government contracting opportunities for small, women, and minority-owned businesses. Their objective is to change the disparities for small businesses in the $2 trillion government marketplace. GovGenie is like LinkedIn for government contractors. It is a social CRM unifying the fragmented government procurement lifecycle and uses AI and ML to help users to socialize, foster relationships, find bids, search for teaming partners, manage proposals, source industry events, and facilitate the capture management process. This saves you, the user, money and time with one streamlined platform versus many other disparate software out there. Learn more about GovGenie at govgenie.com, govgenie.com, govgenie.com. And our third sponsor is the Boom Group. The Boom Group is a benefits organization. They do benefits solutions to fit your needs. The Boom Group provides fringe benefit solutions designed with the competitive government contractor in mind. They offer compliant healthcare benefits designed for contractors working under the Service Contract Act, or SCA, or Davis-Bacon Act, DBA, and state prevailing wage and local living wage laws. The Boone Group builds better fringe benefit solutions for government contractors with our 3 C's approach to benefits: compliance, competitiveness, and cost savings. Learn more about the Boone Group at www.boongroup.com or BOOGROUP.com. That's www.boongroup.com.